Hari Om. Welcome back to our continuing study of Shrimad Bhagawad Geetha from the pages of Pujya Swami Dayananda Saraswati's Geetha Home Study course. We are presently studying chapter 2 of Shrimad Bhagawad Geetha titled Sankhya Yoga, the topic of knowledge. We are examining and studying with the help of Poojya Swamiji the important 47th shloka in which Lord Krishna discusses the important topic of Karma Yoga. Let's continue from where we left in the last capsule. The necessity, the necessity for Karma Yoga, the necessity for Karma Yoga is because people are in the hands of their ragadveshas. The necessity for karma yoga is because people are in the hands of ragadveshas. Their behavior, activities, responses, and prejudices, cultural, racial, and otherwise, are controlled by their likes and dislikes. Their behavior, activities, responses, and prejudices, cultural, racial, and otherwise, are controlled by their likes and dislikes. Prejudices and preferences come under ragadveshas. Prejudices and preferences come under ragadveshas, whether they are binding or non binding. It is said that even gods have preferences. When we worship Lord Ganesha, for example, we offer him a sweet modaka. Sweet modaka that we say he likes. It is based, of course, on our own like. Thus, we impute our own ragadvesha to Bhagavan too. We say Ganesha likes this, Shiva likes that, and so on, so that we can deal with the deity as a person. We cannot deal with someone without preferences. But the idea is that our preferences should be non binding. Important. We cannot deal with someone without preferences. But the idea is that our preferences should be non binding. Preferences should be non binding. Otherwise, there will be suffering. In everyone's life, there are preferences that are non binding in nature and those that are binding in nature. Preferences that are binding in nature are the ones we have to deal with. Preferences that are binding in nature are the ones that we have to deal with. About those that are non binding, we need not do anything. About those that are non binding, we need not do anything. In fact, the Gita Shastra does not deal with them at all because they are not a problem. Whenever the Gita talks about raga dveshas, whenever the Gita talks about ragadveshas, it does so in terms of one's binding likes and dislikes only. Interesting. Whenever the Gita talks about ragadveshas, it does so in terms of one's binding likes and dislikes only. Even Krishna, even Krishna, the Lord who taught the Gita, had preferences. For instance, he always chose the flute. He always chose the flute. He did not come with, with a guitar or veena. We know that he knew what he was talking about as evidenced by his life. Whether we can take him as a wise man or as Ishvara, the Lord, we cannot say that he had ragadveshas even though he had his preferences. Whether we take him as a wise man or as Ishvara the Lord, we cannot say that he had ragadveshas even though he had his preferences. This is to point out that there are non binding and binding ragadveshas, and we must deal with the binding ones. Binding ragadveshas. The binding ragadveshas are those, the binding ragadveshas are those whose fulfillment is a must for you and in whose non fulfillment, listen carefully, and in whose non fulfillment you feel you are a loser, struggler, a seeker, all empty inside. Very important. The binding ragadveshas are those whose fulfillment is a must. You say to yourself, you must fulfill them. So, fulfillment is a must for you, and in whose non fulfillment you feel you are a loser, struggler, a seeker, all empty inside. You are a seeker because you have hope. You want to fulfill your likes and dislikes. These ragadveshas are binding in nature and they make you act. And they make you act. Action does not take place without reason. Action does not take place without reason. When you undertake a course of action, there is definitely a like or dislike involved. When you undertake a course of action, there is definitely a like or a dislike involved. Ragadvesha is commonly called want or desire, kama. These likes or dislikes are behind every kind of action. Every kind of action. We are talking here about the person who has just entered into a life of yoga, for which the cause is karma. Therefore, yoga should definitely include your likes and dislikes. When you say, I am a karma yogi, when you say, I am a karma yogi, you have to accept that You have likes and dislikes to fulfill. To do this, you have to undertake activities which produce results, and these results are not always what you want because you have control only over your actions. Karmani eva adhikaraste. There you go. You have control only over your actions, but not over the results. Ma phaleshu kadachana, says Lord Krishna. Karmani eva adhikaraste, ma phaleshu kadachana. The results come from Ishvara. Results come from Ishvara. First, you accept Ishvara, and then you accept Ishvara as the karma phala data, the giver of the fruits of action. The giver of the fruits of action. When you do this, you have a purely religious attitude. The attitude of a bhakta, a devotee. You're doing all this in the atmosphere of bhakti, devotion. Like we said in the beginning of today's capsules, bhakti is one of the topics that is dealt with in detail in the Bhagavad Gita. The recognition of Ishvara as the karma phala data is what makes you appreciate Ishvara in your daily life. The recognition of Ishvara as the karma phala data is what makes you appreciate Ishvara in your daily life. Even when you fall down and incur an injury, Ishvara's grace is at work. That you fell down and hurt yourself does not mean that His grace is absent. Under the law of karma, you escaped greater injury. You did not break altogether, isn't it? You live to see another day. You can fall down and receive a small injury, not be injured at all, or end up in the hospital, never to return. All these are possibilities. All these are possibilities. Therefore, as a devotee, we see Ishvara working constantly. We see Ishvara working constantly. And what is the attitude of a bhakta? What is the attitude that a bhakta must entertain? No matter what the karma phala is, no matter what the karma phala is, you confront Ishvara. You confront Ishvara. When you open your mouth to talk, When your tongue is able to produce the words that tumble out one after the other, it is because Ishvara is at work. Absolutely. Karma you can do, but karma phala is something that takes place because of the laws that are the Lord. Therefore, every action producing a result, even a small action like opening and closing the eyelids, wow, is the work of the Lord. In every action, there is an intended result that sometimes happens and sometimes does not. It is according to the laws, according to Ishvara's laws. Therefore, as a bhakta, a devotee, you continuously confront Ishvara as you receive your karma phala. As a bhakta, a devotee, you continuously confront Ishvara as you receive your karma phala. Since every result comes from Ishvara, you take it as prasada, a Sanskrit word that does not have an exact English equivalent. Since every result comes from Ishvara, you take it as prasada, a word that does not have an exact English equivalent. The word grace has a somewhat intangible connotation. The word grace has a somewhat intangible connotation, whereas prasada covers both the tangible results and the intangible, the grace. When you offer a fruit to the Lord, when you offer a fruit to the Lord, it comes back to you, given to you from the altar, from the Lord's altar. The fruit that comes back is called prasada. The fruit that comes back from the Lord is prasada. For an English word for prasada to exist, the concept must be there. And it is not there. This concept of receiving something that comes from the Lord as prasada is not there. Hence, there is no equivalent English word for the word, Sanskrit word prasada. A dieting person may refuse a laddu. A dieting person may refuse a Tirupati laddu, but not when he or she comes to know that it is from Tirupati Venkateshwara. What converted the laddu into prasada? What converted the laddu into prasada? The tangible laddu becomes prasada because the person now knows that it comes from the Lord. Therefore, what converts a karma phala into a prasada is purely your recognition that it comes from the Lord. It is a change of bhavana that converts what comes from the Lord into prasada. It is not just a statement, it is seeing, it is understanding. This is where the word experience can be used, if at all. It is a way of looking at the whole thing. It is a way of looking at the whole thing. It requires training. It requires persistent and consistent training to change one's outlook or perspective. Recognition that Ishvara is the karma phala data converts every karma phala into prasada. Therefore, prasada is not an object, it is a way of looking at an object. Prasada is not an object, it is a way of looking at an object. We will continue exploring this idea, this bhavana, this prasada bhavana, that is an integral part of Karma Yoga in the upcoming capsules and take our study forward. Until then, Hari Om. ॐ दुर्जनः सज्जनो भूयात् सज्जनः शान्तिमाप्नुयात् शान्तो मुच्येत बन्धेभ्यः मुक्तश्चान्यान् विमोचयेत् सर्वे भवन्तु सुखिनः सर्वे सन्तु निरामयाः सर्वे भद्राणि पश्यन्तु मा कश्चित् दुःखभाग् भवेत् ॐ पूर्णमदः पूर्णमिदं पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्यते पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते ॐ शान्तिः 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 हरिः ॐ श्रीगुरुभ्यो नमः हरिः ॐ